Good morning. Today, we're going to do a little bit different project. Instead of walking through an actual physical hands-on project that you build, we're going to review some software. In the past few years, I've been working with something called 3D Experience Solidworks. That's a new software that Solidworks put out a couple years ago that is all browser-based, based on the Solidworks software. Works very well, so I've purchased my own license, and it's called 3D Experience Solidworks for Makers. This is a new offering that Solidworks has brought out for the maker in all of us, but they're targeting individuals who are in that maker community. What Solidworks has done is they've taken their 3D experience platform and changed it a little bit. Not a lot, but changed it a little bit. It has all the capabilities of the professional version. And in my experience so far, since it came out, it works pretty well. And what we're going to do today is I'm going to walk you through the basic startup procedure on how to get started using 3D Experience Solidworks for Makers. Now on the screen, you can see I have the website up for the Solidworks 3D Experience Maker website purchase process. And you can see when you first pull it up, it has, obviously, a Buy Now sticker that you can click on. And then it takes you down through some examples of things and what it does. And then it gives you additional information about the 3D Experience Solidworks, the offer that they're offering right now, where you can set up a 3D Experience login or a Solidworks login. And for $99 a year, you get access to their 3D Experience for Makers platform. So, again, I just offer that. You can see the URL up here on my screen. So there's no sense me putting that anywhere. You can just copy that down. But what I want to do is I want to walk you through the actual software itself. So let me jump over here. Once you make your purchase of your software and they issue you either your 3D Experience login or using your Solidworks login if you already have that, you can log in. They will send you a link once you make your purchase on how to log in, the URL for logging in. And when you click on that link, it'll bring you up to this page. And as you can see, it's a typical login screen, and you plug in your information with your email address that you used when you registered and made your purchase, and then the password that you created. When you do that, it logs you in as per normal, and depending on how fast your internet connection is going to determine how fast you get logged in, how much bandwidth you have available to you. Although I will have to say that the bandwidth that this uses, it doesn't seem to be all that much. So it comes up and you can see that I already have some recent drawings that I've done, and it will bring those up initially when you first log in. But on the initial layout, so that you know what you're looking at, in the top left-hand corner, you have what they call the compass, and then you have dashboards that you can create. I've created one, as you can see, and to that I can add additional tabs across the top with additional apps. By clicking on the compass, and then scrolling down through all the various apps that I have available to me as part of the 3D Experience Makers platform, I've chosen the ones across the top here: XDesign, Xshape, 3D Space, which is a personal cloud-based storage space, 3D Drive, which is another cloud-based storage area, and something called 3D Swim that we'll get to here in a little bit. But to get you started, over here on the left-hand side, I'm using XDesign. XDesign is the 3D Experience version of Solidworks. Many of the options and the things that you do in Solidworks on a regular basis, you can do in XDesign. And they are adding additional ones on a regular basis. Now, once you pull up XDesign, you've got where it will restore whatever the last drawing was that you had on your screen. Let's say that for some reason you were in the middle of a drawing and your internet cut out, because remember, this is all cloud-based internet-connected software. If you were to get cut off, you could come back up here and click Restore. And the software will bring up the last version that it automatically saved of whatever drawing. May not be 100% of where you were, but it's a lot better than starting over from scratch. Or you can click New Component, which starts a new drawing, or you can click Open, which takes you to a dialog box that you can either open something in your cloud storage on 3D Space or on 3D Drive, or you can open up something that you saved to your hard drive. You can import files. Let's say you've got an STL file that you have been using for 3D printing, but you don't have the original drawings. Maybe you lost those. You can import those files into XDesign and then pick up from there on solid bodies, converting it to solid bodies and continue to make whatever changes you need. And then for those of you who are completely new to any type of CAD software or XDesign, you can take a quick tour of which they will walk you through some of the functions, some of the basic functions. So for today, well, I'm going to start in what's called a new component. And the first thing it's going to ask me to do is to name my new component. It gives you a CAD name called Physical Product 1. If that's what you want to call it, great. I always name my drawings something that I can remember what it was. So let's call this Maker Demo 1. And it's going to ask me where I want to save it. Now when I click down, because I'm using the Maker version of 3D Experience, select Leader, and that is actually on your 3D space drive. So, click OK, and it's going to create the basic layout and window for you to be able to start doing your drawing. Now, just like in SolidWorks, you have your X, Y, and Z planes you can choose to draw on. You also have your selection box up here in your right arrow where you can select what you want or how you want to view your drawing. I'm going to leave it in the default mode, and I'm going to create just a small quick part for you because again, just like in SolidWorks, I'm creating a part to start with. I can come down here and create assemblies, but for right now in this basic overview, I'm just going to create a single part. Now down below, in order to do that, I have all my different tools on each one of my tabs. I have my standard tab, which is pretty basic. It's got your create a new component, it's got your close, it's got your save, and we'll walk through that in a second. It has your sketch features, just like in SolidWorks, where you can draw your various different geometric shapes. Features, just like in SolidWorks, where you can do your extrusions, you can do your extrude cuts, you can do chamfers, you can do fillets. So you have a variety of different geometric shapes you can do here, just like in SolidWorks. It has a Surfaces tab where again you can make changes necessary based on lofts, based on revolves, very similar to SolidWorks. And then you can also create assemblies from multiple different components. It has design guidance. It has tools. It has a life cycle tab. You can also access the marketplace. If you draw a part or create an assembly and you actually want to 3D print it, you can go out here on the marketplace and either select a vendor to send it to, or you can have it produced via CNC or 3D printing, whatever you're trying to focus on. So let's go back to Sketch tab. I want to create a basic shape. So to do that, I'm just going to go down here to my circle. I'm going to draw a center circle, and I can decide what type of circle simply by clicking on the arrow. I'm going to do a center circle, and you'll notice that the icon changes. It wants me to select, okay, where do you want to draw this? What plane? I'm going to draw it on my XY plane. My grid comes up. I'm now in sketch mode, but it hasn't really moved. And for me, I find it easier if I'm going to draw it on that XY plane. I want to be looking straight down on it. So I come over and select my Z, XY face. And it turns my grid to where I'm now looking straight down on. My cursor now has changed to a center line. With a circle, because I'm drawing a circle, I'm going to go right to my center point, click. And I'm going to draw a circle. And I'm just going to pick any size circle. And as you can see, it highlighted the circle, but I want it to be a certain size. So to do that, I come down to my toolbar. And I highlight or hover over top of sketch dimension. When I click on that, my cursor changes again to an arrow with the sketch dimension icon. I want to click on my outer edge of my circle, and I want to set my diameter. So I click, I'm going to set this at a 3-inch diameter. That circle now becomes a 3-inch diameter. Great. That's wonderful. I drew a circle, but now I want to do something with that circle. I want to create a spacer for a part that I'm working on. Some people call a spacer, some people call it a washer. So I'm going to come back down on my toolbar. And I'm going to click on Features. I'm going to hover over top of my Extrude button, my Extrude icon, and where my arrow is when I click it, I can either Boss Extrude, or I can Cut Extrude. In this case, I want to create a hole through the center of my circle. So I'm going to click on Extrude Cut. And I have a dialog box that will pop up and ask me, okay, what exactly do I want to do here? I want to extrude. I'm sorry, I misspoke. I want to extrude this so it's a solid piece. We'll get to Extrude Cut in just a second. So it's going to be a solid piece. It's going to be what is called a blind direction. I can go several different directions. I can use midplane, I can go up to geometry, but for what I'm doing, blind works the best. Right now you can see it's highlighted where it's going to add 1.378 inches of material. Well, okay, wait a minute. Maybe I wanted to draw in millimeters. Then I would come over on the right-hand side here. I can click on millimeters, centimeters, meters, inches, or feet. I'm going to leave it in inches for now because that's the way I started. I made a 3-inch circle, but I only want my distance or my thickness to be 1/8 of an inch, which is 0.125. When I do that, it changes that thickness to 1/8 of an inch. Now I could have typed in 1/8, 1/8, and it would have picked up on that, and it would have plugged in the decimal point for me. So I've got my thickness set. I'm going to click the arrow, and it's going to add that material to my circle. That is now a solid disk of material. I want to look down at it again. So I can decide by looking at this what direction I want to look at it. As you can see, I've turned it so you can see it's 1/8 of an inch thick, but I want to look down on it again. So I come back up here on my arrow and select my view selector. When I click on that, it gives me a highlighted box that if I right-click, I can move this around to whatever direction I want. Or I can come up and click on my top view, and it will automatically change where I'm viewing looking down at the top again. Okay, so this is great. I've got a solid disk of material, but we said we were going to create a washer, or some people call it a spacer. So I want to come back to my Sketch tab and go back to my circle. Click on Center Circle again. And notice how again it's asking me, well, okay, what plane do you want to draw on in your sketch? So I want to click on my sketch. Whatever plane you're wanting to draw on, and it turns back to a grid system. I'm now in sketch mode. My cursor has changed to my center lines. And a circle icon for my center circle. I go back to my center. Left click. Draw my circle, any size circle, and then I go back down to the bottom on my sketch dimension icon and click that. My cursor turns to an arrow. With my sketch dimension icon, select my circle, and I want to make this a 1-inch circle. So when I click on it, 1.0, and hit enter, it now changed my circle to 1 inch in diameter. I'm setting the diameter there, but right now it's still a solid disk with a 1-inch circle in the center. So now I want to come back down here to my Features tab. Click on it, and go back to my Extrude icon. And I want to select Extrude Cut. The last time I added material, I did an Extrude, which is short for Extrude Boss. This time I want to use Extrude Cut because I'm going to cut away material. And when I do that, it highlights my circle. And it wants me to know, okay, it's a solid and we're going to cut. So what direction do I want to go? I can now hit my down arrow, and you can see I have a lot more selections. I can do a blind and set the depth. I can do a midplane. I can do through all both, through all one way, up to geometry, up to next, up to body. Depending on what I'm doing in my drawing determines how I want to cut that. I can select blind, and we know that my solid disk is 1/8 of an inch or 0.125 inches in thickness. I can set it for that so that my hole goes all the way through. Or I can hit my down arrow and I can select through all both, and it will go completely through my hole without any obstructions. If there are obstructions, it'll cut through those as well. Click my arrow. I now have a hole all the way through my solid disk. That is now my washer. I can also set that hole. I set it for 1/8 of an inch, 0.125. I could also have come down under Features and use the Hole tool or Hole command. Where I could have selected a countersink hole, I could have selected a variety of different holes to cut. For what we were doing here, it was just as easy for me to sketch and draw a circle and extrude cut it, because again, we're doing a basic process here. So I have my washer or my spacer, whatever you call it. I've got it ready to go. Now I want to save it. So I'm going to go down here to the Save icon. And when I right-click on the up arrow, I can either save it, save as, or export. Right now, we have named our spacer. If you look in the upper left-hand corner in the Design Manager, we've given it a name called Maker Demo 1. When I save it, first of all, I'm going to click Save As. And it's going to come up with that name under component name. I can change it if I want to. But it's going to save it into my collaborative space, which is my 3D space folder, and called Common Space. I'm going to save it there first. That's up on the cloud. Now I've saved that. Maker Demo 1, my spacer, into 3D space in that common folder. But I want to 3D print this because I made this for a reason. So I'm going to come back down, I'm going to click my up arrow, and I'm going to tell it to export. When I click Export, it's now going to come up with a different dialog box, and I can either save it to my 3D drive, or I can save it to a file on disk. And if I'm going to 3D print this or CNC it, I'm going to click File on Disk. My dialog box changes. I can either use the name that I've been using, or I can change it, and then it asks me what file format do I want to save it in. When I hit the down arrow, it gives me some choices. I can save it in the default file format for XDesign, which is 3D XML. I could select SLDXML, which is a Solidworks format. Or I can come down here and select STL, which is a stereolithography file that I would use in a slicer software for my 3D printer. Or I can select one of these other file formats, which are pretty generic. They're used a lot depending on what CAD software you're using. Maybe you've got a CAD software, Autodesk, or you've got a CAD software that's a freeware program that uses one of these file formats. Then you could select that and export it so you could pull it up in that. I use SolidWorks on my hard drive, full-blown version of SolidWorks, in addition to what I'm doing on the 3D Experience platform. So I always save mine. Actually, I save mine 3 different ways. When I have a file that I'm exporting, the first thing I will do is save it as a 3D XML because that's the default for XDesign. Then I will save it as a SolidWorks file, and then I'll save it as an STL file. And I will put all those in the same folder so that depending on what I'm doing, I have it in a format that I can use. For this demo, I'm going to select the default format for XDesign, which is 3D XML. When I click Export, it's going to take all that information for that 3D part, gather it all up, and then I'm going to save it to my hard drive. I have a folder called Moon Joe on my desktop on my computer. I could change the name again if I wanted to. I'm going to leave it Maker Demo 1. It's in a 3D XML file, which is the standard XDesign format, and when I click Save, it exports it and saves it to my folder on my desktop. So that's a basic overview of how to use the 3D platform for XDesign. Now remember, up across the top, I had set up additional tabs with additional software. If I click X Shape, it goes out and the dashboard will pull up a software called X Shape, which is different from XDesign, and we'll do a walkthrough and demo on that at another time. You have your 3D space, which is your individual cloud, and there's our common space folder. When I double-click on that, it brings up anything that I have saved, and you can see I've saved a lot. And there's our Maker demo that we just did. And then we have 3D Drive, which is also out on the cloud. And I have a folder for projects. And then there's something called 3D Swim. 3D Swim is a community for makers. It's a software where you can access a variety of different communities and be able to post comments, post projects. As you can see, on the left-hand side under the Communities tab, I have a lot of different communities that I've accessed and added to my favorites so that I can access. One of them, actually 2 of them, were created specifically for the 3D Experience Maker platform. The first one is Maker Support, where you can go in and ask basic questions of the support team. And as you can see, they have a welcome, and some people have already posted some questions on how do I change a file name. SolidWorks Professional Simulation. You can access that, ask questions of the support for 3D Experience, and they will answer you back. Or you can browse through these and see what's up there. You may learn something that you didn't know. You may get an answer from reading these that you had already before you asked a question. The other community is what's called Makers. Made in 3D when you first go into it. They give you an overview of getting to know and post in the community. And then this gives you an opportunity to post projects that you're working on. If you've got a project that you're using the 3D Experience for Makers platform, XDesign, Xshape, or one of the others, you may want to go in and share it with the community. And you can do that by going in here, and I would highly suggest going through their overview on getting to know and post to the community before you try to post something. But that's there for anyone who's subscribed to the 3D Experience platform for makers. So that is a general overview of how to get started, how to get your subscription, how to log in, how to bring up XDesign, and get started doing CAD drawings, 3D CAD drawings using the 3D Experience Maker platform. I found this very helpful. Again, I run and have been running for years the full-blown version of Solidworks both in my previous teaching position and also at home. On my computer at home, I find this platform, 3D Experience. In some cases, it will do things I think better than SolidWorks. There are still some things that SolidWorks does better and in more detail than this format. But one of the advantages of using 3D Experience platform for makers is you have access through 3D Swim to makers around the world. Anybody who has subscribed to the 3D Experience Maker platform and is posting or watching the posts, you have access where you can share, ask questions, learn from what other people are doing. You also have the ability to save your drawings, your assemblies to the cloud, as well as saving them to your hard space either on an external drive or on your hard drive on your computer. So check it out. Again, if you're interested in subscribing to 3D Experience for Maker, you would do that through the website at the beginning of this video, or you can go to Google and type in 3D Experience for Maker, hit enter, and it's going to bring that up in a search where it'll take you right to it. $99 a year. It's pretty good value. Hopefully you found this video helpful and interesting. If you did, hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner and hit that bell so that each time that I post a new video, it will notify you that there's a new video. So until next time, we'll see you. Enjoy working with the 3D Experience platform.